Hi, I'm Eric Londo and let's talk today about autonomous vehicles. Our law firm is making a series of videos about it, and let's talk today with the fears and the hopes that we can all have about that new tool of our cities and of our lives. We should realize that we're living in a world in full swing. Okay, everybody says that, but it's true. It's true on that precise topic. The autonomous vehicles takes place in a world itself in transformation. The multimodality and the urban mobility are witnessing a complete change. We'll talk about that in another video. The electrical vehicle is revolutionizing the landscape, but tomorrow might be also the hydrogen-propelled vehicle that will change things. There's a remarkable change in the field of goods. In the past, we all owned our cars, our movies, our records. We are going from that world to a world of use, lease, and not property of goods. That includes cars, scooters, or bicycles. Maybe these autonomous vehicles will be in free-floating things, for example. This phenomenon has contributed to the success of various business models that are completely changing the means of transport. There's also a revolution of big data, not only the GPS. It's a mix between big data and GPS that allows us to use this kind of tools in a complete different way, not only in finding our way, but also in finding our car. And as the car more and more doesn't have to be plugged into electricity to be recharged, but you just can change the battery very fast at night and all that, you can have more and more big data and GPS that are linked with the technical evolution of batteries to change completely the use of electric vehicles, especially if they become autonomous. So finally, we are witnessing structural revolutions concerning various public services. And in France, like in other countries, the public transportations are having to cope with big changes in their kind of contracts, length of contracts, technological evolution that doesn't allow long contracts anymore. All that make big changes for the local governments. In this context, comes in our city streets and lives the vehicles that may not be autonomous, level 0, and more or less autonomous. The complete autonomous vehicle is level 5. The quite autonomous vehicles, but with still a driver, are level 3 or 4 in the international way to categorize it. Some countries, like the US, develop other kind of categorizations. There's also, in France, like in any other country, an experimental framework about it. That is, anyway, not the same worldwide, but worldwide everybody does, with the changes made on the International Vienna Convention of '68 that were changed in 2005 about it. Let's work on it, but let's watch our video about it. So now, let's talk about the topic of that video, our fears and hopes. There may be, in the beginning, hopes arising from these autonomous vehicles. First, of course, we're talking about fewer accidents, we hope. For example, Google reports only 12 accidents over 1.6 million kilometers traveled, and nearly always there were some human factors in there. But let's not completely hope too much from that, at least as long as we'll have both humans and autonomous vehicles on the streets on that. Why? Because we've seen, and a very famous Tesla accident proved that it was right, that some drivers, especially those who lived accidents for which they were protected by the autonomous vehicle, lived that they could be too much confident, they could confide too much in their car, and then we lose the help of the human being when there is a problem to take care of. Of course, another hope is to improve the mobility in our cities, but also in the whole countries. We hope for a better, much better occupation rate in the parking spaces. Even the University of Toronto mentioned that a possible improvement of 62% was doable if you take into account the fact that cars might be, on their own, going too far, parking places, parking lots, and also park in the parking lot themselves with very fewer occupation space between the cars, like in the Tetris game that we all knew long ago. We hope, of course, for revolution in public transportation sector, a greater fluidity of traffic, which also can lead to a better carbon cost. a better carbon cost? Yes, if that new tool is not so great that everybody goes back to taking his car again. Of course. Are you going to tell me that all that is electricity? Yes, but first, electricity is not always made by clear plants. And two, there's also a problem of particles, elements in the atmosphere that come from the brakes and from the tires. Let's never forget that. Having said this, there are the challenges, there are fears too. There are fears and difficulties in managing personal data and information issue. For example, in French, the National Committee about it, Commission nationale de l'informatique et des libertés, has put in place a mechanism to ensure the compliance for those kind of cars. There is also, in the European Parliament, a regulation that has been decided the 27th of April 2016. But that is still pretty weak in terms of legislation, especially for a French lawyer. We like laws in our country. This is, however, a whole series of risks that can come from that, even if you respect these. Think of first of cyber terrorism. There is a big risk about it. If anyone with a joystick can turn your car into a terrorist bomb, that becomes suddenly something as terrible as the most Tom Clancy's nightmares. There is also a risk for our liberties, because if you can completely follow where you go with your car because of this big data that it uses, combined with your phone and credit card, then we can start to live in a country where civil rights might be endangered. In France, the organization that groups all the insurance companies would like us to have recorders in each car to mention where we've been doing, at what speed, what we've been doing, where we were going, for incidents, for accidents, for torts. Of course, it's a good idea, and Germany is taking that way. But for civil rights, for individual freedom, is this a risk? Maybe, maybe. Another risk, of course, is for employment. What will happen for when we will reach the level 5 autonomous vehicles system? To the taxis, the car drivers, the Uber drivers, the tourist cars or buses drivers. We're not there yet. We might reach that point in less than 10 or 20 years. 10 maybe not, 20 probably. There is a risk of piracy of our data, of course. And there were interesting studies about it, especially done by the universities of Washington, California and Michigan. All the more reason to experiment all that. Let's see our video about it. To have good regulations about it, especially the question of ethics and responsibilities and torts. Let's see our video about it. And all the adaptations for local governments. Streets, every system on the streets that might exchange data with the autonomous vehicles and all that. Parkings, the local governments will be very important in the transition to the new system, and they always are the forgotten ones when we talk about it. So that's a lot of things to see, a lot of things to discuss. One more reason for us to talk about it in our new videos. See you soon then. Bye.